Welcome to Veronica Live, and we are here with our next guest, and he is so interesting. He is worked for the CIA and is a whistleblower, and he's got a book out that you can find on Amazon called The Broken Whistle, a Deep State Run Amok, and then a documentary that I guess it's coming out, Deep State Gangsters. And if you go to Instagram or X, you can see the preview, which I watched, and it was riveting. So I want to welcome to Veronica Live for the first time. We've got Pedro Israel Orta. Welcome to Veronica Live, Pedro.
Thank you, Veronica. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Well, we've got a lot to ask you because, you know, I have a family member that was a whistleblower, and it was awful. So tell us your story on how you became a whistleblower in of all places, the CIA, because, you know, as Americans, we want to have faith in the CIA and FBI. And I've got to tell you, I'm hoping Trump gets in to clean up these agencies because I don't feel like we're there yet. So tell us your story, Pedro. What happened?
Well, it's a real long story. I mean, the book, we're looking at 23 chapters, 448 pages of the appendices, the prologue, epilogue. But the gist of it, if I can really summarize it to make it easier for the audience, is, you know, if you work for the federal government, by law, you are required to report anything that you witness that pertains to violations of law, waste, fraud, abuse of authority, significant and specific endangerment of public safety. And when you speak up to the proper authorities, your chain of command, or the Inspector General, or even Congress, there's an avenue to go to Congress, that makes you a whistleblower. You blew the whistle. In my case, I did it internally, and it was like accidental whistleblowing. I was just doing my job. There were several instances, but the main one is after 14 years of being at the CIA, highly decorated, not to brag on myself, but 8 exceptional performance awards, almost 6 years of war zone experiences. And I haven't been to Iraq for 2 years, Afghanistan for a year, another war zone for 2 years, and making special trips called TDYs to a war zone for 7 months. I land in Afghanistan in December 2014 as a deputy chief of base, where I'm supposed to be working to ensure that our personnel are safe. So that's our number one priority, keep people safe and meet the mission demands, do our job. Well, I'm working for a chief of base who, great, nice lady, but frankly, no war zone experience. Unable to handle the stresses of the job, the separation from family, the dangers of constant rockets landing near us. And it created a hostile work environment where one officer was marginalized below us. And, you know, she was basically not meeting the mission needs, sending us out for yoga classes, for food. We were not meeting with the military.
We've heard this story before. We've heard this story before from another lieutenant colonel that was in the attaché in Italy, and he wrote, you know, he's got a whole foundation because of this. So the story is then that you obviously reported this woman not doing her job.
Yeah, I mean, it really came down to a situation where I had to report it. I reported it. They did nothing. The situation continued to deteriorate and eventually would blow up, and she falsely accusing the subordinate of drawing a weapon he never drew.
Oh
and, we had rockets, you know, that landed around us, you know, immediately after we had gone out of the inner sanctuary for food, without any reasons to go out. And we, you know, weeks were going by where we had not met with the military for a week. We were too busy socializing at the base, meeting with enlisted personnel to pick them up to take them to a yoga class, you know, nonsense. So I reported it, and the end result was they sent me home, known with a short a tour, kept her out there, ruined my career. I couldn't get any jobs. The entire bureaucracy was just hell-bent on destroying me. EEO useless, DIG's useless, HR useless. I get chased out of CIA literally, and I end up in the Office of Inspector General for the Intelligence Community. And this thing just snowballs, and it just grows and grows and grows and grows until it culminates into a crisis that, eventually I'm blowing the whistle on the broken whistle on all these broken processes.
Oh, my gosh.
And go ahead. Sorry.
I say, was this a DEI hire kind of thing? I mean, was this what you were dealing with?
Great question. In part, we were dealing with a culture of trying to promote women into some of these jobs that they were not qualified to do. Mind you, we did have a lot of qualified women who served in war zones and did admirable work, even as, chief of bases. But this was one of those cases that were trying to put basically a round peg into a square hole, or vice versa, a square peg into a round hole, trying to make a statement. And it didn't work, but, they didn't care. They were trying to force it.
Well, so what happened to the other guy that she lied about? Did he report it too, or he just kept his mouth shut?
Well, what happened there was they literally kicked him and I out of that base. They sent him somewhere else in Afghanistan. His boss literally thanked me and shook my hand and said, "Thank you for saving my officer," because they wanted to send him home.
Oh,
but
gosh.
I went home, and I'm home, and I get called into CIA headquarters, and I'm basically told, "You're not going back to Afghanistan." And that's a long story. I mean, that's where I go into a full chapter where I said, into the pit of hell, CIA headquarters, literally. Hell is empty and all the devils are here. That's exactly what
who
it was
wants to go to Afghanistan? You're willing, and they won't even send you to the pit of hell. So, So I guess, was this, I mean, who's messed up? The CIA upper leadership that we think is messed up? We see all these James Comey and then John Brennan and all of these people, and I don't trust any of them now, especially after the years and years and years of Russian collusion and Hunter's laptop and then to think they pulled out the Russian collusion storyline again. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm not buying this. I don't know who is. This is round 2 of the Kabuki theater. So where is it because, and we had this one guy that worked with the CIA, clandestine kind of guy, and he said it started with Obama, has put all these people in, and now we're looking at year 16, I think, of all of these people in these agencies that are DEI hires and they're liberals, and that's where the cluster is. How do you see it, Pedro?
I mean, there's different components, and one way to look at it is, I mean, there is an element of presidential politics that plays into it, particularly when you have someone like Obama who brings in strong leaders like Brennan and Clapper into these agencies, and they're able to put their stamp, their imprint as far as who they want, what they want in these organizations. And that can make a situation in which it perpetuates these abuses of power. The other element is the lack of congressional oversight. Congress has the power of the purse, the ability to rein in these abuses of power within these agencies, but Congress does nothing. They engage in political theater, showmanship, and basically grandstanding. Historically, it's been the Democrats who have held these agencies accountable, but that all changed when Trump came into power. Trump became president, all of a sudden, all these agencies, according to the Democrats, were good people. They were not bad. Republicans historically have never, ever held any of these agencies accountable. On the contrary, they have been basically part of the problem as far as abuses of power within these agencies going back into the 50s, the 60s, and even the 70s.
So is it both sides are dirty is what you're telling us?
Both sides are responsible for the lack of accountability within these agencies. On the one hand, Democrats have embedded themselves in one way or another with these agencies and have used these agencies to maintain a grip, a hold on power by weaponizing the power against political dissent. On the other hand, Republicans have allowed it to happen by not reining in these agencies and not using any levers of accountability and oversight to stop it. I mean, the Weaponization Committee, for all its work that it's done, might as well call it what it is. It's a circus, you know. It's a three-ring circus, basically. All they do is just bring people in, they testify, and they issue a report. Like, why would you issue a report on Biden's transgressions and impeachable acts after he's no longer a viable candidate? He pretty much checked out. I mean, it just tells you what it is. It's just a political show.
So Pedro, what do you make of the? I guess the fundamental problem that I see that I've I deal mainly with DoD, people and agencies, and there just seems to be this lack of respect for the law. I mean, even when you point out to them very clearly, here's the law and here's the DoD policy that implements that law, it's like you're talking to the wall. It's like they don't care. And as you point out, there's who holds these people accountable. I had one case where I had a disagreement. The Department of State said it was okay to do something, and DoD said, nope, you're not going to do that. But it's, Department of State has the legal authority to make that decision. And it's like, well, if you don't like it, take it up with the President of the United States, because that's the only way you're going to resolve a problem between state and DoD. And is it just, are we too far gone? Is it just these bureaucracies are so self-perpetuating and they're their own entities and they create their own laws and they're not really accountable to anybody? Is that where we're at in this situation?
There is truth to that statement. These bureaucracies have become so strong and so powerful that they're a law unto themselves. They choose to interpret the law how they see fit. If a law does not basically if they don't see a law to fit their needs, they will find a way to circumvent it, avoid it, kind of tiptoe around it, like straddling the fence. And, again, it's the lack of accountability that perpetuates these problems. They get away with it, and that's what happens in the arena of whistleblowing. They're able to take reprisals against whistleblowers because they pretty much know that no one's going to be held accountable. And as long as no one is held accountable, you will continue to see these problems. And you're right. Something has to be done at some point in time. And it begins now, or else we can see a continuation of the weaponization of government power against not just employees and whistleblowers, but citizens, as we have witnessed post J6 after the election in 2020.
So all of the whistleblower protections in the Whistleblower Protection Act are kind of seem to be meaningless. I mean, it's funny. The state of Florida here, we just had this controversy over some development in state parks and stuff, and the only person that got fired was the whistleblower.
It's awful. Who wants to be a whistleblower?
And it seems to be the same way in the federal government. The whistleblowers, get targeted, and we see this with, you've got the FBI whistleblowers, you've got the over this Hunter Biden stuff, the IRS, Treasury whistleblowers. Now you've got the Secret Service whistleblowers out there, and what's going on with this?
Well, here's the problem. Whistleblowing. There are so many different laws for whistleblowing and whistleblower protections. You have the intelligence community is called Title 50. They really have the weakest, if any. They really don't have protections. It's just unenforceable and very weak. And it all hinges upon a Presidential Policy Directive 19. Similarly, you've got military Title 10. They have pretty much their own schematic, their own requirements, and that falls in line similar to the rest of the federal government, which is Title 5. Yeah. But then the FBI has their own set of whistleblower laws that are very similar to basically Title 10 and Title 5. And, then you have a different arena of whistleblower, OSHA, Occupational Health Safety Act. Then on top of that, you might as well bring in the financial whistleblower laws, which are a little bit different. All these laws kind of intersect. They have some similarities, but they all have a fundamental problem: how a reprisal is investigated. And it falls upon the inspector generals. And the inspector general system is significantly flawed on its conduct of reprisal investigations because they really don't have dedicated resources to do it. It competes with other investigations. It takes resources away from core IG functions. You've got IG officers that are not really trained to do reprisal investigations. They take their sweet time to do these investigations. Evidence is perishable. So you have many cases of a reprisal investigation that finds no reprisal took place, but in reality, they did not substantiate the reprisal, not because reprisal did not happen, but because they failed to conduct a timely and exhaustive investigation to find every fact to be able to substantiate that reprisal.
Well, I think sometimes, though, because somebody close to me reported somebody, and it was a DEI person protected by another DEI person, and then 2 years later it came out saying that everything was true, and the person that should have been held accountable got to retire with nothing against them. So it's just disgusting, I don't know how to fix it. I mean, is it a deep state issue? I mean, or is it why aren't we holding these people accountable that need to be handled? Because I hope that woman that caused all your issues, I hope she's out on her butt somewhere.
Well, I mean, Congress did absolutely nothing for me. The attorney, I finally had to hire an attorney. The attorney wrote to Congress, pretty much got no responses. Only two senators had vague interest, but they were Democrats, as can be expected, because Republicans really can care less about whistleblowers.
I can't believe that.
That's the truth, sadly. It's hard to believe.
I can't believe that.
Historically, it's pretty much been the Democrats to defend whistleblowers. The exception is Grassley. Senator Grassley has been pretty active and vocal, but I mean, nothing is ever done. I mean, you send a letter out, and a letter is not going to solve the problem. You pass the yearly House, in the Senate, they commemorate Whistleblower Day, July 30th, but it's just basically a show. I mean, it does nothing. So sadly, that's the problem, a lack of congressional action to really solve this problem.
Well,
what's so different now? I mean, I remember. I'm old enough to remember the church hearings, way back when, over abuses, by the intelligence agencies, and they actually came out with some concrete, actions based on those abuses. Is that what it's going to take to fix this?
Well, the church committee, eventually, the end result of that, all those hearings, you're right, they did something. They really beefed up the congressional oversight functions of the Senate Select Committee of Intelligence and the House Permanent Select Committee of Intelligence. So the HIPSI and the SISI have oversight functions over the entire intelligence community. If any whistleblower in the intelligence community blows the whistle or does something, tries to get to Congress in one form or fashion in whatever way, eventually it falls under the jurisdiction of those two committees. But those two committees have been absent in oversight. Those two committees pretty much year in and year out give the intelligence community what they want. I mean, I witnessed it. I saw it. Every year, the Intelligence Authorization Act is basically written up, and the intelligence community gets to comment on it. We like this, we don't like this, we want this, we don't want that. Can you change this? Can you, change the language on that? So the intelligence community has a say in what these oversight committees actually pass every year. Frankly, all these senators and all these House members, with the exception of Devin Nunes in 2017, 2018, have really done nothing at all to stop the weaponization of government power, or for that matter, to step in and help a whistleblower.
Well, you're right.
And they were blaming him and calling him a liar, for everything he was saying, with those actions.
Yeah, he's the only one really who stood up and tried to do something about the weaponization of government power that was weaponized to target General Flynn and, caused this Russia hoax investigation. The Senate Select Committee of Intelligence, on the other hand, with the Republicans, Rubio, who is now basically the ranking member for the Republicans, and Senator Burr back at the time, they were part of the problem that were investigating people like Michael Caputo that ruined Michael Caputo's life. So the Republicans were part of the problem in these committees.
So I wanted to ask you, because on your Instagram, you've met General Flynn, you've met RFK Jr., and on your Instagram post, you wrote, "Considering the deep state Trump stooges fired me, and then I publicly called out the weaponized whistleblowing against Donald Trump at a significant cost to me. To this day, not a single major Trump and MAGA camp affiliated person has extended a hand of help to me." And then you write, "For all those who think my book is an endorsement of Trump, read the book. It is not." So I guess, are you not supporting Trump then, who says he's going to clean up all of this deep state? And I think the first time he didn't have the right players. This time I think he has clarity on who the right players are to help him clean up the deep state. I don't even know if it's possible to clean it up in a 4-year term.
On the left, I am hated. They think that I endorse and I support Trump. And actually, I do support Trump and I do endorse Trump. But the book is not an actual endorsement of Trump or defense of Trump. It's more a revelation of the weaponization of government power and of broken whistleblower process. And I do expose how they weaponize the whistleblower process to target Trump. And on that note, I spoke up on behalf of Trump, and I revealed to the world that they changed that Form 401 to take it a step away from what was required of whistleblowers to report first-hand information to be able to report second-hand hearsay information, which was used to target Trump with the Ukraine impeachment. And now I spoke up. I did a Twitter thread. It went out. At that time, the Department of Energy, IG, was doing a review of my first reprisal allegation, and they refused to contact me. They refused to help me. They wouldn't communicate with me, and they basically endorsed the CIA fraudulent, investigation that was totally flawed, that said there were no reprisals taken against me. And sadly, to this day, that is correct. Despite the fact that I publicly helped Trump, not a single Trump administrative member has helped. And on that note, it was Mike Pompeo in the CIA that fired me. And when I went to him through his number 3, Brian Bulatow, they basically said, let the CIA bureaucracy handle this. We're washing our hands of it. And they basically allowed the CIA bureaucracy to take more reprisals against me and fire me.
Wow,
that's interesting. Do you think Gina Haspel was a wise selection?
My goodness. I mean, okay, let me put it to you this way. Who is Gina Haspel?
Do we need a shot of whiskey?
Gina Haspel was handpicked by John Brennan to be, it's in press articles, you can read it out there, the chief of station in London during the Steele dossier investigation, or, doing that report. Basically, Mike Pompeo picked a John Brennan protege to be the deputy director of the CIA. And the truth of the matter is, Mike Pompeo was at the CIA to pad his resume so that he can set himself up to run for president. He checked out of the CIA as fast as he could. He was in there basically, I think it would have been not even a year, and basically handed the reins over to Gina Haspel and helped her become the director of the CIA. So keep in mind that Mike Pompeo's CIA, even though he was the director of the CIA, he was basically continuing the CIA that was in place with John Brennan. And in comes Gina Haspel and just continues that.
I found it interesting because there seems to be I don't know if you want to call it back channel, but where you have these agencies working against the Trump, this is in 2020, working against the Trump, presidency, actively working against him, which I really find shocking that nobody in Washington seems to care about that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, the CIA under Pompeo and Haspel basically were part of the problem in trying to get documents declassified regarding the Russia hoax, Russia crossfire hurricane investigation. I mean, basically up to the last hour, the CIA under Haspel was fighting back that declassification request by President Trump in his waning hours of his presidency. And on top of that, the Department of State, with Mike Pompeo under his leadership, basically did nothing to try to push back on all that Russia hoax. Sadly, in his first administration, President Trump did put people in positions of power who were basically deep state stooges that undermined his presidency. And that's something that he needs to keep in mind for the next administration should he win the presidency. He can no longer see to it that some of these people, these personnel, are either put back in power, given another position, or for that matter, similar proteges to take their place.
It's interesting because, one of the things that's come out recently is Trump is refusing the intel briefings, that the Biden administration has offered him, because he's like, well, if they give me these things, then they're going to leak stuff and claim that I leaked it, So in one respect, I think he's really learned his lesson about who these people are, and it'll be interesting to see if he does that. And I would like to use a term of a CIA term. Do you think these agencies need to be decapitated?
I like that word.
I mean, these agencies need a thorough cleaning out as far as the political operatives that have undermined the rule of law and have weaponized these agencies to basically, usurp the power of a president and not comply with congressional oversight, which is a serious problem. These agencies flaunt congressional oversight, and they basically do the same thing with presidents. They're so powerful that they can either ignore presidents or wait them out until they're out of their terms.
We saw some of that too during the impeachment hearings, and I started hearing terms that I'd become familiar with in my fights with the bureaucracy. The interagency working groups, which are like, you talk about your shadow government here. That's who really runs things. I mean, really, it's serious. And now you have these whole of government. That another popular term now that you're starting to hear is whole of government efforts. Where they're trying to get all these agencies to coordinate their power to go do something or put somebody out of business.
Well, on that note
whatever,
too, though, John and Pedro, I want to know what Pedro thinks about when the 51 former intel officials signed the letter. And I've put all over X. I think all of their clearances should be revoked.
Good starting point.
I mean, a couple things there. I call the Office of Public Affairs. All these government agencies have an Office of Public Affairs. They're supposed to handle public relations, media contacts. So I call them Office of Propaganda Affairs, because they're there to shape a narrative into what they want the public to know. Similarly, all these offices that are called Office of Congressional Affairs, I call them Office of Covert Action, because they're there basically to manage the relationship with Congress to get what they want from Congress. And as far as these 51 officials, they had help from some of these offices who were involved, particularly the CIA Pre-Publication Review Board office, actually helped to expedite the review of the letter, because they had some high-level officials in that list. As you know, Mike Morrell was one of the instigators, and he publicly said in a congressional hearing that he did it because he wanted Biden to win. These are acts of subversion. I mean, literally trying to subvert the will of the people and using the power of these agencies to pick presidential candidates. And the bottom line is, none of these agencies are supposed to promote one or the other. They're supposed to be completely neutral. As we're taught, I mean, we are bound by actually a congressional act called the Hatch Act. Not a single member of any of these government institutions can publicly side with a political candidate and endorse him publicly. We're supposed to be neutral.
Well, John and I know that as retired military here. We know that.
Do you think we've got,
John?
do you think we've got too many intelligence agencies? I mean, you've got, the FBI counterintelligence. Why it exists is beyond me. I mean, it's like everybody and their brother's got an intel agency nowadays.
I lost track how many there are in the intelligence community. I believe it's like 17 or 18 offices, and there's a lot of redundancy. There certainly needs to be a significant study like President Trump has proposed of Elon Musk to see where government waste can be basically just completely demolished, destroyed, obliterated, just done away with. And it doesn't help when you've got multiple offices doing analysis. This reminds me of an incident when I worked in one office where there was a group that went to brief a significant senior in the executive branch of government for a presidential level type position, not the president. And one office went in with a certain amount of information saying this is what's happening, this is what we know. Another office went in saying this is what we know, this is what's happening. Eventually, this principal basically told one of them, stop. Okay, you're telling me something different this other office is saying. Both of you need to talk and get an agreement to find out what's going on here. That happens too much, and that is just not beneficial.
Well, I wanted to ask you, because you're an ordained Christian minister, and people don't realize that when you are a whistleblower, like, people don't sleep, the whistleblower. They're scared. It's like they lose weight. They can't eat. It's stressful. The family's impacted, and then it's this long, arduous process. So did God and your faith help you get through this? I mean, how did you get to the other side, Pedro?
I mean, absolutely. Faith in God got me through this, having a deep personal relationship with God, with Jesus, his son, the word, kept me grounded to be able to deal with the storms that came after me. And I mean, I get into it in the book. I mean, ultimately, I did pay a significant price, and I'm still trying to recover from the damages suffered. And, only God can make it right. And that's what has kept me going.
And what would you tell somebody thinking about being a whistleblower today? Because John and I mean, we've heard from whistleblowers now that have come on the show, and I know whistleblowers, and sometimes it's just, I don't know if it's worth it. Sometimes shaking up the system. I mean, sad to say, especially if you have a moral compass, it's hard to take on the bureaucracy of these huge organizations because they don't care about you, and they have an unlimited amount of lawyers and all of it. So tell me your thoughts on that.
I mean, each case is different. I mean, I witnessed a lot of bad things, and I didn't blow the whistle on everything. But what crossed the line was when I was asked to falsely accuse a subordinate of something he didn't do.
I hate that.
That just crossed the line that I couldn't do.
Right.
So each case is different. I mean, you got to pick your fights wisely. In most cases, if it's insignificant, if it's not life or death, that's another issue. I was dealing with life or death issues. Our lives were being put in danger. So that's another thing I had to deal with. So I really had no choice but to blow the whistle because we were dealing with life and death issues and then falsely accusing a subordinate. But, I mean, if they're insignificant, you got to be like a snake, kind of wiggle your way out of there and find another job. Honestly, that's the best thing to do. If you find yourself working in a corrupt environment and we're just dealing with financial matters, just get out of there. Find a way to move on and just go somewhere where there's some honor and some integrity.
And I want you to talk about your movie, Deep State Gangsters. It's a full-length feature. The clip on it, the teaser, is like, I can't wait to see this movie. I got to know why this guy was poisoned like 2 times with the whistleblowers. I'm petrified. It's coming out September 27th. Is it coming out in theaters, Pedro? And you've got, let's see, he's famous too. He's been on our show. Michael Waller, that wrote Big Intel, is also one of the guys that's in the movie, and I adore him. He's fun to follow on X. Where can we see this movie, and how did you end up in this movie?
I worked with Frank Panico, the cinematographer. He's the producer, director. I'm the executive producer, writer, co-writer with him. And we discussed it, and I'm the one really who had the idea. He got a hold of my book, and he wanted to turn my book into a documentary. But I said, I don't want to make this about me. There are more people out there than just me. Okay. So I was able to enlist John Kiriakou, Nate Kane, Garrett O'Boyle to be, full whistleblowers with myself, 2 CIA, 2 FBI, where we can walk people through our personal stories as whistleblowers with some expert commentary, color commentators, J. Michael Waller and Lee Smith, providing some context of what it all means. So that's basically the genesis of how this project got put together. As far as the distribution, how this film is going to be rolled out, actually still working on that. We've got some options. As of right now, Salem has agreed to distribute it in their online streaming platform.
Oh, that's
so
wonderful,
Salem is
Pedro.
picking it up, but I don't want to limit it just to Salem. So
well, I saw you were on Tucker, the Tucker network. That would be huge too.
Yeah, although they promote their own material, but there are other avenues out there for distribution. So working on that. The goal is to get it out. Certainly, originally the plan was 17 September, but there are a lot of administrative things that need to be done with the film, so working through that now. So we're now shooting for 27 September.
Okay, well, I can't wait to see it. So, what have we missed, Pedro? I mean, I'd love to buy you a drink for your pain, and I can't wait to. I've got the media copy, which I was perusing for an hour, which was amazing, and then the teaser for the movie is fabulous. What have we missed?
Well, the reason for the book and the reason for the movie is what does it mean? With my book, I ended with who will speak for you when they come looking for you. And that's how this movie ends. The bottom line is what this means is, the gross abuse of government power, the weaponization of government power is dangerous. It will destroy our constitutional republic, and it will throw us into basically a totalitarian type state where the state is in control. And, we've witnessed the effects of what's known as democide, where, governments basically kill their opposition. I mean, could that happen here in the U.S.? It happened in Germany in the 30s to 40s. It happened
Are we
in Stalin's
witnessing
Russia.
it with Trump in the lawfare?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think
Kamala lying about everything, and Tim Walz, stolen valor. Every day I just strap on my seatbelt in my chair, and I'm like, what's next? And I've been joking every show that I need to start taking Xanax for the first time, because it's literally every day. I'm like, what? Now Haitians are eating cats? Yeah. What? Every day it's Venezuelans are taking over apartment buildings. Am I in a third world? I've lived in a third world country. You've been to these countries too. The military sent me to one. So,
but now they're not killing us physically, but they are castrating us financially. Cancel culture, literally. So the censorship. It's getting to the point, that if you are a conservative with godly values, that you will be so censored and, outcast that you may be unemployable, blacklisted.
Oh, I feel that way as a talk show host the last 4 years, the last 2.
And by the way, blacklists
I can't get a job.
Blacklists in the U.S. government are real things. People say it's illegal. Well, it is illegal, okay? But it's real. I mean, believe me, my
family members have told me that because I'm so radically conservative.
That is true.
But if you rattle the cage, they will blacklist you. I mean, that, like I said, there's lots of ways to do it. Pedro, one thing I'm always looking for. We talk about the problems. Now the solution. Okay, is there anybody that you think or admire that you think could get appointed, like CIA director, national intelligence director, somebody high up that can fix these kind of situations?
I mean, we're going to need people like General Flynn.
Yes, he's been on the show.
Rick
We love
Grinnell.
him. He's been on the show. We love him.
Yep.
Yeah, Cash Patel, Devin.
Oh, Moon, I love Cash.
Yeah. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Vivek Ramsey.
Oh, love him.
Yeah, we're going to Elon Musk. Alan Dershowitz. We're Victor Davis Hansen, whatever his name is. I mean, we're going to need people of this caliber to come into government and enforce their will and transform the government into what it's supposed to be. I think Reagan said it, the government that governs least is best, or if he didn't say it, he quoted that, and that is the truth. We have got to basically trim down the power of the federal bureaucracy, on the one end through the executive branch, the executive appointments, but on the other hand, we have got to get Congress involved. And it doesn't stop there. As far as the answer, we need the states to push back. We need governors to arise, attorney generals in the states to arise, like we've seen in Missouri and Texas.
Oh, that guy's awesome.
To push back on federal government overreach. And the last line is unfortunately the weakest. I don't know what is going on with some Americans, but I mean, I am just absolutely in shock what I have found here in Tulsa, in Middle America, in the Midwest. It is just an apathy, a lethargy, a complacency that is pathetic.
John and I, we talk about this. Florida, we've got Amendment 3. They're trying to push pot and make it legal, being pushed by corporate greed. And once it's legal, and we've had the author of the Soros Agenda, where Soros wants every state to push pot because people become lethargic. And I think I've been beat up so much on X, it's been insane. And I wanted to ask you this as a CIA guy. Melania Trump just came out right before the show with a statement saying, hey, I want answers about my husband. So, I put on there, we agree with her. I said, I agree with you, First Lady, and the public wants to know. And of course, I'm attacked that, Trump's a rapist, that his ear wasn't really shot. That was a good catch-up attack. Let's see, I'm going through here now. I'm in a cult. I get that one all the time. I'm insane. What were your thoughts on this whole assassination attempt? And we have no answers. And they already cremated the kid's body. And don't tell me some 20-year-old playing video games was able to do this. And I'm appalled.
Well, I mean, to me, the problem is just complacency in the federal government. A complacent and DEI culture within the Secret Service diminished its capabilities that created the scenario for this individual to make this attempt. And, sadly, unfortunately, we have no trust in the investigative functions of the FBI to get to the bottom line. So nobody believes whatever the FBI is saying. And we can't even count on Congress to investigate because they failed to put in the most qualified people, Corey Mills, Eli Crane, two of the most capable and qualified to be in that investigative committee that weren't even selected for it. So it's just a joke. But I got to say this, back to the complacency.
Yeah.
The complacency at the electorate level, at the citizen level, is probably the biggest problem that we have. Here, we just had the election for the mayor a week and a half ago. 26% of the electorate showed up to vote for the mayor.
We're living that here. It's like embarrassing, actually.
And on that complacency, in 2019, we had a measure to legalize marijuana. So the pro-marijuana people, cannabis, mobilized and were able to outvote the ones who were against the marijuana.
Well, that's what we're worried about. Freedom Florida. Yeah. They've spent almost $70 million. It's amazing.
Well, right now, 5 years later, Oklahoma, probably one of the reddest states in the nation, leads the nation with 2,400 cannabis dispensaries in this state.
Oh my gosh, don't tell us that, because we just had our representative on, and we've got these pop-up medical ones all over. I said, we don't even need it legalized. It's already here. Oh my goodness. Well, I think...
Of course, the biggest company that's spending money on making marijuana legal in Florida is a company called TrueLeave, and they dumped $74 million into advertising for that amendment. I mean, and they're a monopoly basically in the state of Florida for cannabis.
The citizens need to get off their butts and go vote.
We're praying, Pedro. Yep. We're praying. Well, the book is amazing from what I've perused. The Broken Whistle, A Deep State Run Amok, and then coming soon, by the end of the month, we hope, Deep State Gangsters. You can go to Pedro's Instagram, Pedro Israel Orta. And you're also on X, and we're now Facebook friends. I'm going to share this show, and let's get some traction, Pedro. We got to have you back, and thanks for stepping up for our country. And then, will you be watching the debate tonight? That's the question.
I don't think I can sit and listen to Harris. But Harris is not worth 1 second of my airtime.
Yeah, okay, well, you'll have to listen to my tomorrow. I'll have a show on it.
I might just simply mute her when she's speaking.
Yeah. Pedro, I like the quote in your book there. In an age of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. That is 100% spot on.
Amazing. Yes, it is.
Yes.
Well, God bless you, Pedro, and everybody, please check out The Broken Whistle, and I hope to have you back on Veronica Live.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining Veronica. Thanks for joining Veronica Live. Thanks, Pedro.